My name is Elias, but I was born Karim, the son of a powerful imam in Saudi Arabia. According to my family, I'm dead, but I'm not. I'm very much alive, and what I'm about to tell you could shake everything you think you know about religion, power, and truth. When I was 15, they told me I'd marry 4 wives. One of them was just a child. That was the moment something inside me snapped, and something else awakened. What followed was a near-death experience, and a encounter with Jesus himself, and a series of revelations so deep and so real, I can't keep them to myself anymore. What I saw, what was shown to me, goes beyond personal belief. It's about a spiritual war hiding beneath global events. A hidden agenda, crafted not just by religious systems, but by the elite, the very powers shaping our world, our news, our values. And they don't want you to hear this. If you've ever felt like something's off, like the world around you is more controlled than we're being told, you need to watch this until the end. Because what I lived through wasn't just a conversion, it was an awakening. And Jesus didn't just show up to comfort me. He showed up to reveal the truth, a truth the world is desperate to silence. Before we begin, I want to know. Comment below where you're watching from and what time it is where you are right now. Let's see how far this message can reach. And if you're someone who believes there's more going on behind the scenes, more than what the media shows, more than religion admits, then subscribe now to the channel, Truth from Beyond, so you don't miss what's coming next. Because these revelations, they're only beginning. I was born in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, into a home where silence echoed louder than love. My name back then was Karim, the only son of a highly respected imam, a man whose eyes burned with religious fire, but rarely with warmth. By the age of 9, I had memorized the entire Quran. People used to say I was chosen, destined to walk in my father's footsteps. But inside, I was just a scared kid drowning in expectations. Religion wasn't something I believed. It was something I wore like armor, cold, heavy, unquestionable. Every morning, before the sun peeked over the dunes, I was up, bowing in perfect sequence, whispering verses I no longer understood. I wasn't praying, I was surviving. My father didn't allow mistakes. If I missed a prayer, even by minutes I'd be punished, sometimes with words, other times with silence that cut deeper than any belt. My mother, she was soft but caged. She would sometimes glance at me like she wanted to speak, to protect me, but she never did. The spiritual war inside that house wasn't visible to outsiders. From the minaret, my father preached about paradise and hell, but our home was already a purgatory. I used to stare at the wall and wonder, if God is love, why do I feel so unloved? But you can't ask those questions in a place like that. Doubt is a threat, and threats are crushed. What most people don't know is that behind the veil of religious devotion in places like Riyadh, there's a hidden agenda. It's not just about God, it's about control, obedience, silence. The elite that run these systems aren't just after your soul, they're after your autonomy. As a child, I felt this, but couldn't name it. I'd sit through hours of Quran recitation, my mind wandering to thoughts of freedom, of escape, of a world where truth wasn't dictated by the loudest voice in the room. That world felt like a fantasy. Until one day, it didn't. I remember a night, I must have been around 12, when I had what I now recognize as a near-death experience. I had fallen violently ill with a fever. My body went cold. Time slipped away. In that state between here and there, I saw a figure, tall, radiant, not threatening, but piercing. He looked at me and said only one word, truth. And in that moment, something cracked inside me. I woke up gasping, like I had been underwater for years. But I couldn't tell anyone. Not in my family, not in my mosque. I buried the memory like a forbidden treasure. But that encounter was the beginning. It wasn't a hallucination. It was an invitation. As I got older, the pressure increased. I was praised in public, monitored in private. Every aspect of my life was scheduled, curated, and suffocated by religious duty. But inside, something had awakened. A quiet rebellion. I started reading in secret. Psychology, philosophy, anything I could get my hands on without getting caught. That dream wouldn't leave me. That word, truth, kept whispering in my spirit. It wasn't long before questions turned into unrest. And unrest, in a place like mine, that's dangerous. But nothing prepared me for what came next. I was 15 when my father told me I was going to be married. Not once, not twice, but 4 times. One of the girls was only 13. Her photo was handed to me like a receipt. No voice, no choice. Just a name, an age, and a future I hadn't asked for. Something inside me broke that day. I remember looking at my hands, trembling, as if they no longer belonged to me. I wasn't a boy. I wasn't a man. I was a pawn. A token in a twisted religious machine. That night, I locked myself in my room and wept. Not just for me, but for those girls too. I knew this wasn't God. This wasn't love. This was a hidden agenda, dressed in robes and rituals, using the name of Allah to justify control and silence. And then came the dream. I don't say this lightly. I've had dreams before, but this was something else. I was standing in total darkness when suddenly a radiant light burst forth, not blinding, but warm, like it knew me. Out of the light stepped a man, not just a man, the man, Jesus. I knew it was him, though I had never seen him. He didn't speak like men do. He felt into me. And then he said one word, "Come." That's all. But I collapsed. I wept like a child. I felt every chain fall off my soul. I woke up that morning breathless, shaken, and alive. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of never living. From that point, something shifted. I started searching online for answers. I found an Arabic Bible, just fragments at first. I read in secret, under my blanket at night. The words of Jesus weren't rules. They were rescue lines. He spoke of love, of freedom, of a God who wasn't a tyrant but a father. It wrecked me. I couldn't stop reading. I'd hide torn pages in my shoes, behind bookshelves, anywhere I could. Until the day my father found one. It was a page from the Gospel of John. He stormed into my room, red with rage, holding it like poison. What happened next still lives in my bones. He beat me, locked me in a room for 3 days with no light, no food, just prayers blasting from the speaker and the suffocating reminder that my soul no longer belonged to them. But here's the part no one tells you. Pain doesn't silence truth, it amplifies it. In that darkness, I felt something I couldn't explain. Like Jesus was sitting in that room with me. I didn't hear him this time. I just knew I wasn't alone. My body was broken, but my spirit was rising. I started seeing the pattern, the spiritual war that had always been there. This wasn't just about religion. It was about deception, generational, global. There's a system, yes, even in the West, that feeds on fear and keeps people chained in the name of tradition, culture, politics. The elite benefit from this blindness. I saw it clearly for the first time. So when they opened that door and let me out, I didn't come out the same. I was bruised, yes, but something eternal had been birthed inside me. I didn't know exactly what was coming next, but I knew one thing. I couldn't go back. That old life, that illusion, was already behind me. And soon, I'd be forced to make a choice that would change my entire destiny. The night I ran, I didn't pack a bag. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't even take shoes that fit. All I had was a scrap of paper with a name, a number, and a country I had never stepped foot in. Turkey. The contact came from a comment left under a Christian video I watched at 3 a.m. Someone had said, "If you're trapped and you need help, message me." I did. Weeks later, while my father was on a pilgrimage, I slipped out like a shadow. I boarded a bus, then another, then a plane. I crossed a border with my heartbeat pounding louder than the engine. And when I landed in Istanbul, I felt like I had entered another universe, still broken, still hunted, but for the first time, not caged. The man who picked me up was named Yusuf. He didn't ask for proof or papers, and he just hugged me. I froze. No man had ever done that in my life. He brought me to a small apartment, made tea, and played worship music in Arabic. I didn't understand all the lyrics, but something in me did. I cried again, not from fear this time, from relief. That night, Yusuf prayed with me. His words weren't rehearsed or hollow. He spoke to Jesus like a friend, and I wanted that. So when he asked if I wanted to pray too, I said yes. Not because I understood theology, not because I was ready, but because I was dying inside. And I knew only Jesus could bring me back to life. We prayed, and in that moment, I felt the weight of every lie I had ever believed fall off me. It wasn't just emotional, it was supernatural. I felt like I was breathing for the first time, like my lungs had been holding in centuries of spiritual suffocation. The next day, Yusuf explained baptism. I was scared. I thought, if I do this, there's no going back. But that was the point. I didn't want to go back. I needed a new name, a new life. So I chose one, Elias. It wasn't legally official. It was something I carried in my heart. Elias, the one who stands before kings and calls down fire. That became my silent rebellion, my resurrection. But life in Turkey wasn't easy. I had no visa, no work permit, and no safety net. I moved between safe houses. I learned to walk with my back to the wall, always watching, always alert. Word had spread in my old community. Someone had recognized me. I started receiving anonymous threats. I couldn't go online under my real name. But even in hiding, I was more free than I had ever been. Because I had truth. And truth, once you taste it, ruins you for anything less. I began seeing it all so clearly, how many of us are trapped in systems that call themselves holy, but serve control, shame, and fear. I realized I had been living in a spiritual war zone my entire life. Still, despite the danger, I felt alive. Every prayer I whispered, every verse I read, it was like Jesus was rebuilding me from the inside out. The world had offered me chains and called them purpose. But Christ, he offered scars and called it healing. That contrast changed me. I started journaling my thoughts, writing letters to a family that would never read them, and imagining a future I could barely believe in. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Something bigger was unfolding, something global, something divine. And soon I'd realize just how far the truth would take me, and how much it would cost. It took months before I even knew how to cry without feeling guilty. In Turkey, I lived in a kind of spiritual adrenaline, hiding, praying, surviving. But when I finally reached the Netherlands through an asylum program and the chaos slowed down, that's when the pain hit, like a flood. The silence of safety was deafening. I remember sitting on the floor of a small shelter, staring at my reflection in a cracked mirror. Who was I now? I had escaped the cage, yes, but the scars were still bleeding inside. That's when someone from a local church connected me with a Christian counselor. Her name was Annika, and I swear to you, Her voice was the first safe sound I'd heard in years. In those sessions, I unpacked things I didn't even know were buried. The shame, the spiritual trauma, the fear of punishment, the guilt of leaving my mother behind, and the confusion. How could the name of God have been used to destroy me? I wept over and over. I also wrestled with Jesus. Why didn't you save me earlier? I asked him. And I remember one night while journaling, I felt him say, not audibly, but deeply, because now you'll never settle for religion again. Only me. That hit me like thunder. I realized then, this wasn't just about leaving Islam. It was about awakening, shaking off every false system, every deception, every counterfeit form of spirituality that masquerades as truth. As time passed, I joined a local church, small but full of fire. They welcomed me like family, no suspicion. No judgment, just love, real love. I began to mentor young ex-Muslims who were also secretly searching for something more. I saw the same fear in their eyes that I once carried, and I told them the same thing I tell you now. You're not crazy. You're not alone. There's a reason you're asking questions. I started sharing my story online, just pieces at first. A clip, a quote, a few lines from my journal, then a video, then another. And then the messages started pouring in. Some full of hope, some full of hate. The hate didn't surprise me. I expected it. The death threats, the slurs, the accusations. They came like arrows, but they never pierced the core. Because I had already died once, not physically but spiritually. And what came back wasn't afraid anymore. I even received a message once from someone who used to pray behind my father. He said, "I'm starting to doubt too. Can you help me?" That message wrecked me. It reminded me that this wasn't just about my story. It was about all of us who are waking up from a global trance, people under systems of control, whether religious, political, or ideological. We're not just victims. We're soldiers in a spiritual war. So I began studying theology, not to become qualified, but to go deeper, to understand Jesus beyond emotional experiences, to build roots, not just wings. Eventually, I entered training to become a pastor. Me, the boy who once choked on fear every time he doubted aloud, now preparing to lead. Others into freedom. It's wild, but it's real. And I believe this: the elite may control systems, but they don't control truth. And no matter how hard they try to bury it, truth always finds the cracks. I wasn't just healing. I was preparing for war. A different kind now. Not of flesh and blood, but of spirit, deception, and light. When the news of my conversion reached my family, I didn't hear it from them directly. I heard it from a cousin who messaged me with just one sentence. "Your father says you are dead." I stared at the words like they were a sentence in a eulogy. But it was mine. No funeral, no body, no goodbye. Just erasure. A ghost. And in a way, he wasn't wrong. The version of me they knew, Karim, the submissive son, the obedient student of Islam, that boy had died. But what crushed me wasn't the rejection. It was the silence that followed. My mother. She didn't say a word, not a message, not a letter, not even a whisper through relatives. That silence felt louder than death. I remember praying one night, asking Jesus to help me let go. If she's gone, if they're gone, then take the ache from me. And in that moment, he didn't take it. He gave me something else, a vision. I saw her face, tired, weathered, but soft. And I heard these words: "Forgiveness makes room for resurrection." I broke. Completely. I realized then that my battle wasn't against them. It was against a system. A spiritual prison reinforced by generations of fear, control, and deception. My parents were prisoners too, victims of a larger, hidden agenda, one that uses religion like a leash to keep love locked away. Months later, I received an anonymous email. Just one sentence. "I saw your video. Is it really you?" It was signed Miriam, my sister. The last time I saw her, she was 13, quiet, always scribbling drawings in her notebook, hiding them from our father. I responded with trembling hands. We began talking in secret, encrypted. Messages, voice notes whispered at night. She had questions. She was curious. And then one night, she told me she had a dream. Jesus stood by her bed, she said, and touched her hand. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me, like he knew everything. I knew that look. I'd seen it too. With help from the same Christian network that rescued me, we planned her escape. It was risky, terrifying, but it worked. When I saw her again, we both cried for 20 minutes straight. She looked different, older, but those eyes, still full of wonder. She was baptized 2 months later. We chose a river, quiet, cold, holy. As she rose from the water, I felt something shift in the atmosphere, like a generational chain had snapped. For the first time in our bloodline, someone had chosen Jesus freely. Not out of fear, not out of ritual, but out of revelation. The truth was rewriting our family's story. I still receive threats, some from strangers, others from relatives hiding behind fake names. But I don't hate them. I grieve for them. I pray for my father. I still pray for my mother. I believe there's still a chance, even now, that they'll have their own awakening, their own near-death moment, where truth pierces through the noise. That's what this is really about. Not rebellion, not revenge, but rescue. That's what Jesus does. He reaches into the places no one else dares to enter, and he calls the dead back to life. That's what he did for me, and for my sister. And, maybe, just maybe, he'll do it for them too. If you had told me years ago, when I was locked in that dark room, shaking, starving, afraid, that I would one day be preaching the gospel, I would have laughed, or cried, or maybe both. But here I am, not as Karim, as Elias, a name born in exile but rooted in revelation. I began mentoring youth in the Netherlands, many of them ex-Muslims like me, others just spiritually lost, all of them bruised by religion. They didn't need sermons. They needed truth. They needed someone to tell them, "You're not crazy, you're not alone." And no, Jesus didn't come to condemn you. He came to call you out of the system. My content started small. Short devotionals, testimonies, little videos sharing parts of my story. I didn't try to go viral. I just tried to be honest. And something happened. People began to resonate. Not just ex-Muslims, but atheists, Catholics, agnostics, even burned-out Christians. They said things like, "What you're saying, it feels real." That's because it is real. I'm not offering rules. I'm not offering a new religion. I'm offering the truth that set me free. And once you see it, once you taste what real spiritual freedom feels like, you can never go back to the scripted lies and polished deceptions. This world is in chaos, wars erupting, families divided, technology advancing faster than our souls can process. And behind it all, there's an elite pulling strings, not just politically, but spiritually. That's what Jesus showed me in my near-death experience. This isn't just a culture war. It's a battle for souls. A spiritual war hiding in plain sight. And the church? The real church. Not the buildings, not the brands, but the body of Christ. We're the resistance. We're the light that still refuses to bow. That's why I speak. That's why I risk. Not for likes, not for followers, but because I was dead, and now I live. When people ask me what the biggest difference is, Between the faith I was raised in and the faith I found, I say this: fear versus love. I was trained to obey out of terror. Now I follow out of affection. I used to think God watched me with a clenched fist. Now I know He watches me with open arms. There's no greater miracle than that, and it's not just for me. It's for you. For anyone willing to look past the smoke, the control, the systems of deception, and say, Jesus, if you're real, show me. He will. He always does. And once He does, your eyes won't just open. Your entire being will awaken. So I end my testimony not with a period, but with an invitation. If you're questioning, doubting, wondering if there's more, there is a. And Jesus isn't far away. He's closer than you think, calling you not with condemnation, but with compassion. You're not forgotten. You're not beyond reach. You're not broken beyond repair. And no matter what system tried to bury you, truth always resurrects. My story isn't unique. It's a spark. And I believe with all my heart that more are coming, more voices, more awakenings, more light. And maybe the next one is you. You've heard my story, but this isn't just about me. This is happening all over the world. People are waking up from fear, from systems of control, from lies disguised as truth. I had to die to my old self to finally see what was really going on. And now I carry a mission that won't let me stay silent. We're in the middle of a spiritual war, and every soul counts. So let me ask you, have you ever experienced something that made you feel like there's more going on behind the scenes? Something spiritual? Share your story in the comments. I want to hear from you. If this message stirred something inside you, if you felt even a spark of truth, subscribe now to the channel Truth from Beyond and turn on the notifications. There's more to come. Much more. And it may be exactly what your soul has been waiting for. And now watch the next video appearing here on screen. It will confirm what I've shared, and maybe open your eyes even wider. I'm Elias. Thank you for staying with me, and remember, truth always finds those who are ready for it.